So the first one that we're going to get started with is working with colored pencil, and we're going to do a heavy pressure blend. So that means that you need to have two colors, and we're going to be blending them together. So I might start with my red and yellow. Those are the colors that I'm going to pick. And I'm going to start with the darker one, and I'm actually going to create what's called a value scale first. So I'm going to start by pressing hard. And when you use colored pencil, a good way to get a nice even blend is to actually work in an oval motion. So you'll notice that when I'm coloring here, it's not straight up and down. It's kind of in an oval, large oval. And I'm only going to go about halfway through my box. Then I'm going to take the yellow and I'm going to work from the right back to the left. And again, I'm working with that oval motion, pressing hard, and working towards the red. So the whole goal of this worksheet and of this page is to help us explore and see what works and what maybe doesn't work with these different types of mediums and these different types of techniques. So if I need to, or if I want to explore it a little bit more, because I'm noticing there's some orange showing up, I can start back on the left side with my red and go over the top of it again to see how they blend together. Now with heavy pressure, I'm noticing that it's pretty easy to see how it's going to go from like red to kind of fades into orange, but then it goes orange to yellow right away with heavy pressure. But now if I try and do that same thing with light pressure, I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen. So here we go. Changing it up. I'm barely touching the paper. Only going about halfway. And taking my yellow, starting on the right. Very, very light. Barely touching the paper. Doing a little overlap. And then again, if you really want it to blend well, revisiting your first color and just kind of going over the top of the areas that you did before. Okay, so this one looks much more even as I look at the gradient between them. So we can maybe conclude that when I push with a lighter pressure, it's going to blend easier, at least with colored pencil. Okay, let's try the same experiment with the crayon. Okay, but this time I'm going to maybe switch gears to a cool color set. So I'm going to open up my crayons, and maybe I want to go from green to blue. Okay, now here's why I asked you to have your sketchbook out, or maybe an extra sheet of paper. If you want to do it up top here, you can. With crayons, because it's made of paraffin wax, you really want to check to make sure you have the right color for the right crayon. So I'm going to take a moment, like this looks like blue. It says cerulean blue, and then this one says actually green yellow, so this isn't even a true green, so I'm going to switch it to a true green. If I have one. Oh, that's purple. So as you guys can see, with crayons it gets a little bit different. I have a bunch of green yellows. Maybe I will stick with green yellow then. Okay. So green, yellow, and blue. Doing a quick test. Okay, that looks blue to me up there. That looks green enough to me up there. That'll be okay by me. So now same concept. Going to my heavy pressure. I'm going to start with my darker color, the blue, first. So I'm going to start by pressing really, really hard. You try not to snap the crayon in half, but again, using those oval motions. Do your very best to fill in the box as best you can. And I'm going to take the yellow green, start on the right hand side, and work into the blue. All right, so then we start to see, for me, I start to see some true green showing up. And again, I'm going to flip back to my blue. And we should be pressing really, really hard. I know it's tempting when you start to get to the overlap to maybe ease up on your pressure. Keep it all heavy pressure. Okay, so in my experiment, it looks like it kind of gunked up just a little bit, but I do have the blue to the green to the yellow, or the yellow-green. Same concept, do it with light pressure. Lightly coloring with the blue for me. And switch to lightly coloring with the other color. Okay. And overlapping again, so revisiting my blue one more time. Okay, and kind of just like the colored pencil, they look very similar. Okay, so we maybe could conclude that colored pencil and crayon work very similarly with heavy and light pressure. Okay, but now let's move on to marker. Okay, and this is what's going to be interesting, right? Because could we maybe already do a hypothesis that marker only has like one value, right? So do we think, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, is the heavy pressure from the light pressure, are they going to look any different? Yes, thumbs up. No, thumbs down. Are they going to look any different? Yeah. Okay. So exactly right, you guys, thumbs down. So I'm going to take my marker here, and again, maybe I'll just stick with, let's do red and yellow again. So starting with my red, okay, I'm going to press hard, make a couple little strips. Okay. But now we're about to learn that if I do the dark color first with my marker, what might happen to my marker? It's gonna smear, and then I'm gonna discover that maybe, I'm gonna get the dark color on my light marker. That's also why you have that paper towel there in front of you. You could take for a second and just kind of clean it off, rotating your marker around on it. But okay, they don't really blend together. Well, let's try it with the light pressure, but I'm gonna start with my lighter color this time. Let's see what happens. So I'm gonna barely touch it. Then I'm gonna switch to my red. Barely touching. Okay. So a couple things that I discovered is that when I press really hard, my lines are really thick. And when I press really light, they're actually kind of thin. And then between the difference of putting dark and light down first, when I put the dark down first and the light over the top, it's really hard to see the orange. But if I put the light down first and then go over the top with the dark, now I can see the other color. So that's something new to learn about your markers. Okay, final and last one, our oil pastels. Okay, so with this one, let's go back to blue and green. I'm gonna switch back to those two. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the dark color, heavy pressure blending, working with blue first. It's especially important with oil pastels that you work in that oval motion. Okay, that's what's gonna make it really easy to blend together. I'm pressing really, really hard. And then I'm going to switch gears to my green. Now I noticed that my green is actually dirty, so here's how you can clean that. You can take your little paper towel and you can either sit here and mark it like this, or my preferred method, so you don't waste a whole bunch of it, is you can just pick up your paper towel and just wipe off any of the gunk that's on there. So now mine is clean. I have a clean green. And now I'm going to start right hand side, blending towards my blue. Pressing hard. And wow, okay, look at that color. So, blends pretty nicely when I overlap the light color over the dark color. So now it's time to do the light pressure blend. I'm going to clean off my oil pastels, make sure they're nice and clean. Starting with my blue very gently. What you may notice is that it's going to look like a crayon. And switching to my green. And make sure you overlap with your blue so you get that inner color, that blended mixed color. Okay. So kind of just based on this full scale now, we can see maybe what's working or what's not working, or what might work for you or what is not going to work for you when you choose your mediums to complete your drawing projects in this class. So the next couple ones that we're going to be doing, these are just ways that you can like manipulate the different mediums, or ways that you can apply them rather than just thinking of like heavy and light pressure. So the first one is scumbling. Scumbling is really just taking, if you've ever seen Charlie Brown and his friend Pigpen and has the little dust clouds, that's really what you're going to start doing. So taking my colored pencils again, and this time I'm going to stick with maybe purple or violet and red. We're just going to make little C's, and we're going to kind of overlap them. So they're just like quick little C's that overlap. This would represent scumbling. And then I'll do it with the purple so it's a little bit easier to see. Just little quick C's. Now if I want it to be darker in a certain area, the idea would be that I would just press harder and keep them closer together. So if I wanted to have it darker and lighter, darker would be closer together, more of them pressing harder, and lighter would be farther apart and less pressure. That's really what it's going to be like all the way down. So I'm going to take my crayons here, maybe switch to a red and a yellow. These, so they're different. Again, do your check. Make sure they're actually red and yellow. And the same thing. Kind of see how you can manipulate your crayon. I'm going to try pressing hard and then lighten up a little bit. And then closer together. So scumbling is a good way to get texture. Think about it if you were ever drawing a cartoon with like someone with a beard or with hair, a furry animal, clouds even. A lot of cartoonists maybe use scumbling. And I'm moving on to my marker here. I'm going to switch it up to like pink and purple, or pink and violet. Now scumbling with marker gets kind of interesting. If you overlap too much, you're just going to end up with one big blob of color, right? So you do have to be a little bit intentional with this one. And the last one is going to be oil pastels. So this time around, maybe I'm going to do orange and yellow. So checking my yellow. You are welcome to peel back the little wrapper if you need to on your oil pastels. Please just make sure they make it into the garbage. I don't want to find a bunch of these on my floor. Mainly because oil pastel, trying to get it up off the floor is very, very difficult. All right, and orange. Now I'm ready to start. They're both clean, so starting with my orange. And try out what is it like when you ease up on your pressure. Test out also a heavy pressure to light pressure. I'd maybe encourage you to see what it's like when you overlap the colors as well. And okay, that concludes what scumbling is. You can see how it works in each of the different mediums. And now we're just going to do some very simple color mixing. It's going to look really similar to what we did with our heavy and light pressure blending. So I'm just going to stick with my warm colors for this one. So I'm going to stick with the red and yellow, and hopefully I'm going to make orange with all of my colors. You can choose whatever your favorite secondary color that you want to mix is, that's fine by me, but I'm going to stick with red and yellow. Hopefully I'm going to make orange, so I'm going to start with colored pencil again. And this is where we're just overlapping doing some color mixing. So I'm going to take just from the side here, and I'm going to try and make orange in the middle of my box. So this is where you can really start to play around with, like, how much pressure do I need to be pressing in order to get the blend that I'm looking for. Now I'm mixing my yellow across. Again, I want there to be an orange, nice orange in the middle of them. Pretty well blended there for mine. Colored pencil seems to be a good medium for me. I move on to crayon, again keeping the same color set. As I say, you can play around with it. Maybe start with light pressure and build up to heavy pressure if that's the way that you want to do it. And you're trying to get that color in between. Just trying to figure that out, which one needs to go down first. Okay, so if for whatever reason it maybe doesn't work, so for example, when I'm looking at my crayon one, I can conclude maybe a couple things. Either crayon isn't the medium that I maybe prefer because I'm noticing that maybe I'm struggling with it a little bit, or maybe I can conclude that maybe for this one, this medium, I need to put my light color down first, then my dark color. Okay, so yellow should have gone down first. Okay, just because I'm noticing that I'm struggling to get my color to blend as nicely as I would like it to. So this is kind of what we're trying to discover today. Okay, on to marker. We already kind of discovered putting my light color down first helps, so I'm going to start doing that. I'm working my oval motion. So with the marker, I've discovered that no matter how much I kind of blend it, I can see the orange there, but it's going to just have this really harsh contrast to it, so I can't really get it to smoothly blend. And then last but not least, I'm going to go back to my oil pastels, make sure they're clean. I'm going to start with the dark color with this one, starting with the red, which is darker than yellow. Blending those together. Okay, so kind of looking at all of these. My preference for these would probably be oil pastel and colored pencil, but when you look at yours, again, everyone's a different artist, so kind of discover what maybe worked best for you. Now, was it marker? Was it crayon? Was it colored pencil or oil pastel? Okay, so our next couple ones, sgraffito. This is kind of unique. We're going to discover a couple things here with this. So sgraffito means that you're going to lay down your color and then you're going to try and scratch out of it some different designs. So we're going to be layering up 2 different colors. So I would prefer that you pick like a lighter color You may even want to do like contrasting colors, like a warm and a cool. So maybe I want to do, maybe I'll go back to like blue and green. At least my blues and greens are different enough. There's like a light green and a dark blue. You could do like blue and orange. You could do like pink and red, but I would pick like a lighter color and then a darker color. So I'm going to kind of stick with blue and green, starting with colored pencil. I'm going to put my lighter color down first this time when you do Sgraffito. Okay, so my lighter color goes down first. Ooh, maybe I won't do blue and green. Let's do orange and red. Oh, no, let's do blue and green. We'll do blue and green. That's fine. So I'm going to lay down my green first because that's going to be my lighter color. I'm going to press it on lightly. Notice that I started up in the top corner and went down to the bottom corner. We're going to fill in the whole thing, so however you want to do that. Then I'm going to put my blue over the top. And with the blue, you want to have about medium pressure. And working in those long ovals, filling in, covering the green, or whatever color you chose. And now you have that paper clip in front of you. With the paper clip, you're not necessarily going to open it up to use like the pointy side because otherwise you tear through the paper. In traditional Sgraffito, that is what you would do. But we're just going to use like the soft rounded edge, and you're just going to try and scratch out some different patterns and see if it actually works with colored pencil. Okay, so I'm just kind of making some waves in here. You're gonna have to press kind of hard. Again, try not to tear your paper. So mine kind of showed up. Not very well, but it kind of showed up. So now I'm gonna move on to crayon. Do the same thing, start with green. Then move to blue over the top. About medium pressure with that second color. You can do heavy pressure, but with some of these you might find that it starts to like kind of gunk up on itself. So that's why I recommend medium pressure. And same thing, we're going to try and scratch into the surface some different designs. Okay, interesting. You can also try, if you're careful enough, to pull out that little end, and you may discover if you actually have a sharp enough end, you can pull that wax off the top of the surface. And just be very careful that you don't accidentally tear into your paper. So the soft edge didn't necessarily work, but if you carefully use that pointed end, you can pull out some of the patterns and designs. Again, I'm just kind of doing waves. Okay, with marker, what do we think, class? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we think Sgraffito's gonna work? Yes, it's gonna work. No, it's not. Ah, okay, so I agree with you. My hypothesis is that it's not gonna work. I'm gonna put my green down first. I'm gonna put the blue down. Ooh, but I got a nice good color mix going on. And then I'm carefully gonna try and do Sgraffito. You notice that my paper is really kind of almost wet from the ink from the marker. And as we discovered, okay, Sgraffito doesn't work for marker. And our last one with oil pastel. Put my green down. Again, check your oil pastels, make sure they're not all gunked up. I'll layer the blue over the top. Okay, now I'm going to try Sgraffito again. So I'm going to use the rounded edge first. And whoa, what might you discover? Works pretty well for oil pastel. Okay, so something to consider when, again, you color your projects. I just made a little sun on mine. Okay, we got 2 columns left. So here we go. I do see that we have just a little bit of time left, so we're going to do stippling. Stippling is basically just making little dots on your paper. So I'm going to kind of switch back to, let's do red and orange for this one. So I'm going to start with my colored pencil, red and orange. And the idea here is that you're just going to go through and make little dots on your paper. Okay, then I'm going to switch to the orange, kind of layer it in next to it, and just builds in some extra texture for you. Okay, switch into my crayon. Oh, thank you. Okay, appreciate it. You don't necessarily have to fill in the whole space, but you can kind of start to see how they overlap or work together. The closer you put them together, the darker it's going to appear. Farther apart, the lighter. Okay, with marker, do we want to slam down on the table, or what's going to happen to our marker? Going to flatten, right? So you want to just gently tap with the marker. I shouldn't be able to hear it. And then last but not least, our oil pastel. Okay, so now when I look at stippling, I guess maybe my conclusion would be I really like how the marker looks, and I also kind of really like how the oil pastel looks. Maybe I'm not as huge of a fan of the colored pencil and crayon, but again, it just depends on how fast you went and how precise you were. Okay. Our last one, using rubbing alcohol and baby oil. So we're just going to go through, we're going to make a little blend for this. So just like we did our heavy pressure blend and our light pressure blend. So I'm going to go back to like violet and blue. So I'm just going to tell you guys that this one we're not necessarily going to experiment as much with like our colored pencil, mainly because you actually should use a different solution for this one. So let's do, let's do violet and red for this, I think is what I'm going to do. So let's put violet down. And I'm going to just use medium pressure for this. I'm going to mix it with red. And I should kind of get a violet red, but what we may discover is it's a little bit different for colored pencil. I don't know, I guess you could try it out. Okay, on to crayon. So maybe I'll stick actually with red and blue. That would make more sense. So I'll start with blue. And then red. When I mix blue and red together, I should hopefully get a nice violet. Okay, interesting. I don't know about you guys, my violet kind of looks a little sad and angry, so. And then we've got marker. So I'll start with my red this time. And my blue. Okay, interesting. My last one. Start with my blue. Work towards the red. Okay, so now we're gonna kind of get into the baby oil and the rubbing alcohol. So I'm gonna start with the rubbing alcohol first, and I'm gonna work with my colored pencil up here. So I'm gonna dip it just gently into the rubbing alcohol. And I'm just gonna go right along the top and just carefully blend across the top of my colored pencil. Once it dries, you might notice that it has a smoother texture to it. Okay, so I'm only doing the top half because I want to be able to see the difference between what I did without it and what I did with it. Okay. The last one that we're going to do is just using baby oil, okay, on the oil pastel. Okay. You're welcome to experiment with the other ones if you would like, but for right now, those two for sure are known. So right at the top with the baby oil, I'm just going to start with my blue. You'll notice that it's going to smooth out right away. And work towards my reds. This is one way that if you really want smooth oil pastel, you can use a little bit of baby oil on a Q-tip to smooth it out. Okay. Okay, and that concludes our page here, so it is time to get cleaned up.